Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the What Life. This is a special one because we are now in round 2 of the Zwift Racing League. So welcome. This is a good one, and the nice thing about it is, obviously, you guys have witnessed some of my races from round 1. We're almost a different rider this time, and I can say that. I feel like I can say that quite confidently. First and foremost, just to say hi, hi Tom. I did quite enjoy your Sonobi comment in the chat in the pen before the race. That was appreciated. That's a throwback to a video from months ago where I was trying to type someone in the chat and ended up typing Sonobi. So I appreciate that. It did make me laugh, even if I didn't manage to commentate on it at the time. Right, some info, guys. This is obviously it's a scratch race with Zwift Racing League, 75 participants. And I'm racing for the syndicate team. We only had 3 riders this evening, but that's not really what we're going to focus on. Some stats about the course. We're basically as good as 30k as it is. We've got London Loop reverse, 2 loops, 462 meters in total elevation. So this is going to be a tough one because it's basically a double climb, and it's reversed. So we're basically doing the Box Hill climb in reverse. Right, it's also a scratch race, which means it's slightly different. You know, it's not a GC race, or we don't have to worry about GC times. So that plays a huge role later in the race, and you will see why. I didn't think the race went off too hot. I thought that was nice. Like, we were out the pen reasonably hard, and then things calmed down very quickly. And you will see that if you look at my power chart down the bottom of the screen, little bottom left. Not too hard, not too fast. Things settle quite easy. I think everyone knew that the big issue was obviously going to be the climb, which is almost immediate. We got like 2 minutes, then you're straight into a climb. That was always going to be the thing, the separator, the divider, the thing that broke the group up. So there was no need to go hard and fast out the gates. And again, also, it's not a GC, it's not a timed scratch points rather than time. So, the goal is to finish first ultimately, or finish ahead of the person next to you if you can. So let me give you some other stats on the race from my perspective in terms of watts. Bear in mind, as we said, scratch race, so don't think of it in terms of, hammer down the entire time, although we did work, or it felt like we were working quite hard for a lot of it. I averaged 3.7 watts per kg, 283 watts, normalized to 286. But the nice thing was that in actual fact, I think I put some, for me, fairly reasonable kind of 5-minute times in there. Obviously, that will be the climb. This is the first climb, but the interesting thing about it, and the thing that everyone has to be aware, is the actual climb itself. The segment doesn't actually start straight away. So even though at the moment we're putting the watts down and the guys at the front are moving forward, you're not clocked into the official KOM for the climb just yet. The Fox Hill climb. So that only clicks through in a second. And to give you an idea of my watts going up the climb this time, because my goal was obviously, I feel like I've obviously improved since round 1. So my goal was to try and, just kind of see, I guess, how I was relative to Zwift Racing League kind of level of competition compared to last time. And I definitely know that last time, like, my legs were absolutely torn off. I remember like one race where like 2 minutes into it, it was, straight out of the box into a climb, and I was just kicked out the back almost like immediately. So anything that's not being kicked out the back of the front group immediately, it still feels like a win to me. I'm all about the marginal gains. So we're diving into the climb. We're definitely into the Fox Hill KOM at the moment. I held first time round 330 watts going up this climb, which is 4 point something. It's over my FTP. The climb itself took 6 minutes 15 for the KOM, and obviously you got a few seconds of kind of pre-Fox Hill climb where it's also a bit of an incline. But I did what I could to try and kind of stay with the front guys, but obviously, talent is just moves off, and if you're a stronger rider, there is almost nothing you can do. So my goal was, once I got to this point, and I can kind of see that there's that group of maybe 30 to 20, 25 to 30 riders ahead of me. I kind of knew that I didn't really have any extra energy, or like didn't have the extra watts to ride with them. So I kind of almost immediately, knowing it's not a GC race, I knew that, like, okay, well, also it's a 30k race, and 2 times up Fox Hill, I got to do this again. So just kind of measure off a little bit. Just like, don't worry about trying to stay with that front group. It feels like I'm gonna have to kind of not reside, but like just kind of strategically, if you look on the mini map, there's plenty of little groups forming. You're going to have to kind of pick one and try and stay with them. So that was my goal going up the climb. So I definitely felt like my heart rate is 166, 167. Like, I am working hard, and there was like half a chance, or like half of me was, I wonder whether I can try and ride up, because I saw a few guys bridging, but then I thought, well, in actual fact, I just don't think I have that kind of base fitness to be able to do that, because it almost feels like some of the guys are within touching distance. But perhaps if we got a good group together, these are the kind of riders that we could close up on with a good group once it flattens out, and we all just kind of work a little bit harder. So the descent, like, guys, the thing about the descent, or the thing that I was trying to do on the descent, was use the mini map to see where some of the other groups were, and then just make strategic decisions. I think that's the nice thing about these scratch races, is that you get to make, there's more kind of, in inverted commas, because obviously this is this is an esports. There's more kind of tactical decisions to be made. It's more strategic than just a GC kind of time smash up. So it looked like, from this perspective, after the climb, I didn't manage to hold on to maybe the front 30 riders, and you can see that they move off pretty quickly. Like, even on the mini map, like, they just kind of melt off into the distance. There's some guys that have just kind of really pushed on a bit. So our descent actually just ended up being this group, and from about 32 to maybe 50 in position wise, we had ourselves like a little group, and we were being chased. And you can see on the top right on the mini map, there's a few groups kind of chasing us down. And the thing is, if you check out my little watts at the bottom of the screen, we weren't working hard enough as a group. Like, we 100% just, I think people were racing one another rather than necessarily worrying about the position. But I was actually a little bit kind of like, I find it quite funny to say, like, I was kind of like, right, let's go. There's a few groups ahead of us. I reckon we can chase them down. One of the guys in the group ahead, and I think there's like 3 riders, and there's one guy riding off the front. One of the guys in the group ahead says, like, look, I reckon he says that he reckons they can catch the rider in front. I didn't actually realize that he wasn't in our group when he said that, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's try and ride up to that group in front. And then I suddenly realized, oh, he's not messaging our little group, he's messaging his little group. So effectively, we are the third chase group, if you will. But then I put a little rally call in just to say, look, I think we can catch the 2 or 3 guys that are ahead of us, and then just make a bigger pack as we come into the second lap of the course, and that will make a big difference. So the idea was to get a few people going. I kind of say let's go. I didn't mean to say let's go back. The back is not meant to be there. So down effectively what is embankment, guys, we had to put a bit of a kick in, and I am a bit of a believer and you guys are very aware of my ability as a cyclist, but you can't put a rally call in and then not try and drive the bus a bit. So that was me, guys. I'm pretty proud of it. I was like, right, let's go, and then just attempted to drive a bus, and this is me bus driving. And I did a bit of that down the embankment, and we eventually catch up with this little group that's ahead of us, which is cool because it then means that potentially as a scratch race, we now have like another 5 places to work off, and you can kind of see that instead of being 30 to 32 positions, we're now right the way down to 25. which is quite cool. And it kind of gives us the potential to at least finish. You know, if you can hold on to this little group, then you got the potential to finish right down to 25 in terms of position, which for me is like, guys, like, I'm over the moon to like be in the top half of this race. That feels like, it feels great. I will say that, you know, I weigh in at 76.2 or 76.3 kg. So this like length of climb and then this race, like, I think it kind of does lend itself a little bit to my style of racing and the type of cyclist that I am, and my weight. You know, that combination of like, you know, a 5, 6, 7 minute climb effort, and then a lot of stuff on the flat with a half reasonable sprint at the end. If I knew how to sprint, then I think it kind of might have played a bit more into my hands. And then here's the thing is that, and I think Tom again points it out, it became very casual. Our ride back to Fox Hill became very easy, like guys just catching their breath, like the gas comes right off. You can see in the power chart at the bottom of the screen, no one's too worried. From a nutrition point of view, I was basically sucking on a gel. I ended up taking 3 gels during this race. I think total race time of about 47 minutes. So I was like, fueling is actually going to be important. So I knew that, especially coming up to this last climb with a 6-minute effort, that was going to be kind of reasonably anaerobic because it's threshold or above. I was going to have to work hard. So another gel just before hitting the climb. Now my figures for the climb Fox Hill on the second time round is I held 309 watts, which again is like theoretically above my FTP as we know. And I did 6 minutes 29. So just to recap that for you, my first time up Fox Hill was 3:30 and 6 minutes 15. My second time was 3:09 and 6:29. So 14 seconds slower, and what is that, 21 watts less going up for the second time. But I will add that my heart rate gets higher on the second time round, just because it was a solid smash up, and I think we'd yeah, I was kind of certainly struggling a little bit. But I do know that you know, as a climber, like I'm not a natural climber. Like, it's not the thing that I gravitate towards more, but I am quite one of the things I am quite happy with, and I know that it's something that people kind of a bit contentious and people talk about it, is I do feel a bit more comfortable working below the 80 RPM and putting out kind of reasonable watts. And I was kind of switching between kind of slightly slower RPM and trying to put out reasonable watts, and then kind of spinning up a bit. And so, you know, having that variability. So I'm, just to be clear, I'm not aiming to build like big muscles by doing low cadence stuff. What I want to do is build my range of being able to function at different cadences and put out different watts. And part of that is me feeling more comfortable kind of being able to hold 75 RPM to 80 RPM and still put out quite high wattage, and work from a muscular point of view. So I do want to strengthen the muscles, which is why, you know, I talk about doing some of the lower cadence stuff, and yeah, just like I feel like it does help and develop my strength. So it's not necessarily hypertrophy. There is no hypertrophy involved, which is basically what is required to build muscle. The goal is to strengthen and just be able to put out different watts. And there is actually someone shared a really good YouTube video from the I can't remember who it was, but they're talking about the fast twitch, slow twitch muscles and muscle variants and things like that. And it is quite interesting in terms of which ones you use, but ultimately being able to, or what I would consider myself as like not quite a fully trained cyclist, like just yet. I don't feel like I've got to that point where I'm like official, like a trained athlete when it comes to cycling. There's still a lot of development. There's still a lot of kind of muscles that are not familiar with necessarily this particular movement. So that is something that I have been focusing on. It's something I'm going to continue focusing on at least for another month or so, and we'll see where we get to. But it does feel like it has paid a bit of dividends. especially, this is my first kind of actual race that involved a bit of climbing, and I was able to put out watts, from anywhere from 75 RPM right the way through to like 95, close to 100 RPM. Anyway, guys, I've cut us down to the last mile and a half, 2K of this race, because obviously not a huge amount happened in terms of positioning, and you can definitely see that on the bottom, my watt zones, power zones, everyone was using opportunities to recover, and no one really got too carried away. Now, especially once we got down off Box Hill, it became a strategic race, because we definitely weren't going to catch the front group, because they had melted off into the distance. They'd done their thing. So our only chance from a position perspective was effectively P25 onwards, to however many were in our group. And I imagine there's maybe 20, 22 people in this group. So, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't have a huge amount of sprint experience. I obviously have sprinted before, but the thing that I was finding interesting is measuring out the I don't know what's the best way to describe it, that kind of tension and poise that you have to hold before you start building the watts. Because even if you start building the watts, even by 10 watts, 20 watts, 30 watts too soon, then you are putting more and more pressure just through your legs, through your aerobic system, through your muscular system, and it just makes it that little bit harder. And I'll show you what I mean, because I don't trust my sprint, because I very rarely do it. I don't have that much experience, or any experience really, of sprinting. Just the odd, just kind of throw caution to the wind every now and again. But this was a proper, or it felt like to me, that proper sprint environment of okay, who's going to go, where's the position, when's someone going to ride off, and you'll see the mistake that I make, but also the way that I try and recover from it the best I can. And ultimately, when it comes to a sprint, the only way you can recover is by putting more watts down. But you'll see what happens. So, sorry guys, I do work in miles, so 0.6 of a mile is 1K. So it's not too far away from, a moment of someone could go. And I saw this guy go early, and I was like, okay, I don't necessarily need to go with him, but I want to make sure he doesn't just get that, the luxury of just riding to the line and, doing an MVP up in Glasgow. So I went with him, and a couple of other guys come, and I presume the group behind me also built the watts a little bit, but obviously they're sat in the draft of us as riders. So what I kind of feel comfortable is when it gets to kind of 0.2 of a mile, which is about 320 meters, that's when I want to go, or that's when I feel comfortable giving everything. But the problem is that my heart rate now is 168. So effectively, I haven't given myself a huge amount of room. I see a couple of guys go. I realize it's time to just try and to put it on. I saw 900 watts there, so not too shabby, but perhaps too much too soon, because I die an absolute death. So it looks like I was doing quite well in the sprint, but just not being able to hold on and keep pushing it out. And 172 on the HR, more than happy with that, guys. So it was a brilliant race. I really enjoyed it. And as a cyclist, I feel like I've developed a huge amount. I think that shows. My racecraft isn't quite there, but, nice little PB on the power curve. I will see you guys next week.